All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, back in my lane, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there just like you and just like me. Before I get going on this video, where I'm going to talk about how the Guess Who appears to be winning, the old Guess Who seems to be winning against the current, what they call fake Guess Who, and this is very interesting. And they may have set a precedent which would open the door for the Little River Band to do something very similar. Before I get going on that, though, I wanted to highlight this collection since I'm mentioning LRB. If you don't have masterpieces, this is brilliant. Came out at least a couple of years ago. Graham Goble came on the show to promote it. Um, I think during our first interview, now I'm just saying this is a coincidence. Our first interview, um, we talked about all of the like B sides or less popular album tracks because I was going back and listening to these albums, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this is a good band. It's just one interesting song after another. The songwriting, the vocals, the late, great Glenn Fry said Little River Band, the original guys, were the best when it came to being a great vocal band, a great harmony band. And I think he's right. And personally, I like listening to LRB more than the Eagles. I'm just kind of tired of the Eagles. I'm over it. Whereas you go back and listen to Little River Band, and I just love hearing the stuff that isn't all that familiar because there's so many great songs, and that's what Masterpieces is all about. I said in the video, I'm pretty sure if you go back, you guys should really put out some other stuff to highlight this or something to that effect. And here it is. I'm not saying he did it because of me, but they also remastered their greatest hits album and expanded that. So good for them. They deserve the credit, they deserve the revenue stream. And this has a little bit to do, obviously, with the Guess Who. And Randy Bachman is actually going to talk about the Little River Band. Now, it's interesting because this article is primarily about how the Guess Who lost the rights to their name. So I'll start here. Bachman co founded the band in 1966, right before Burton Cummings joined. So Bachman was actually there first, which is pretty cool. They combined to co write many of the band's best songs, including These Eyes, No Time, and American Woman. Bachman then left in 1970 to form Bachman Turner Overdrive, another band that is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Guess Who eventually split up in 1975. Cummings joined Bachman for a few Guess Who reunion shows, but the group eventually moved forward on a permanent basis without either Bachman or Cummings. That was in the late 1980s. Original bassist Jim Cale obtained the rights to the name and then was joined by fellow co-founder Gary Peterson on drums. Peterson, by the way, is in videos and in photographs of the current band. Cale is not. He retired back in 2016. And Cummings and Bachman allege in the 2023 lawsuit that Peterson doesn't appear at every Guess Who concert, leaving the lineup without any core members. So what they're getting at here is misrepresentation of a product, right? Because, we've been talking a long time on this channel about how bands are brands, they're trademarks. Everything has become about what's legal, what's not legal. This isn't about the music. This isn't about a bunch of guys getting together in their garage and starting a band and coming up with a name. No, I mean everything has just taken on a bigger life, and it's kind of sad. But, when you start messing with someone else's stuff, the original guys eventually start to get a little bit irritated. Bachman and Cummings, by the way, have said some of the group's promotional material actually featured their images, which is a big no-no. So someone who hasn't kept up with this, right? Like I've kept up with it. People I'm sure who've watched me for a while have been onto this for quite some time, but a lot of the casual fans are thinking, yeah, Bachman and Cummings, yeah, I want to go see the Guess Who. And here's a picture. And so they're thinking, this is what I'm going to see. But Bachman, I always want to say Bachman and Turner, but it's Bachman and Cummings. The duo said this is fraud. Very interesting angle to take this. Randy Bachman said he and Burton Cummings might never have known if not for social media. This is pretty interesting because everybody was shut down for the last 3 years. Well, some people were. There's no newspaper. There's no Rolling Stone. So everybody started communicating with us personally with Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Now, I will correct Randy Bachman because there was Rolling Stone, and Rolling Stone, I'm sure, was cheerleading, telling people to stay indoors and make sure you're 6 feet apart and wear your rock and roll face diapers and so forth. Fans, though, started sending shots, not the kind that you drink, but, pictures using their iPhone. They said things like, we drove 600 miles to see you. And instead, we saw a bunch of guys who weren't even born when these songs were hit songs. Now, that's interesting. Now, let me interject a little bit here. There would be a little bit more sympathy for these guys who were born after these songs were hits, right? There would be sympathy if there was some kind of proper representation. All right? 2 things. One, you try to find people who sound like the original guy. The problem, Burton Cummings, I mean, that voice, it's almost impossible to duplicate. So you have to do this whole karaoke thing and try to convince people you sort of sound like Burton Cummings, but they don't. They don't. I heard Queen and Cheap Trick on their last album. That's what I heard. They're doing their best Queen, their best Cheap Trick impersonation. Get this. We spent $100 each, and there's 8 of us, and the songs don't even sound like you guys. So they spent $800, not including the cost of traveling, right? American Woman has a flute solo. That doesn't fit. Stuff like that. They started communicating with us directly. So the fans who were diligent were noticing that something isn't quite right in Denmark or Canada or wherever the band is circulating. When the legal process continued to drag on, Cummings decided to do something unprecedented. He terminated the rights agreements on his songs to keep the Guess Who from performing them in concert. And so the current band was forced to cancel a string of concerts. And Bachman said otherwise, they might have continued on forever. So it appears that what they did actually worked. Now, moving down a little bit to the story of the Little River Band, this is what Bachman said. Well, the lawyer who figured this out, I believe she set a precedent. I think there should be a court of fairness in the world. Do you know what I mean? I remember there used to be 3 Fleetwood Macs, 3 Platters, 3 whatever. Some guy who swept the floor once or, carried a suitcase claims the name, and he goes out and does the songs. I don't remember the 3 Fleetwood Macs, but okay, maybe. So he goes and says here, Graham Goebel, Glenn Scharik and Beeb Birtles co-founded the Little River Band in the mid 1970s, but eventually drifted out of its lineup, then lost control of the trademark. They can't even play as Little River Band, and that's totally unfair, Bachman says. LRB is now led by Wayne Nelson, who joined in time to sing on LRB's early 80s hits, The Night Owls and Take It Easy on Me. And again, Burton Cummings says here, I mean, I knew all the guys, Glenn, Beebe, the whole band. They have to tour as Chirac, Birtles, and Goebel using their own names rather than Little River Band. Bachman confirmed that he can still perform the Guess Who, the songs he co-wrote, since he retains co-authorship rights. Now, all of this legal mumbo jumbo is really difficult to follow. So essentially, what they did was just terminate the ability of other people to perform their songs live. That's what they did. And they essentially just shut this current version of the Guess Who down. And so this is a cue for other bands that have had hostile takeovers where the guy sweeping the floor obtains the rights to the name and thus prevents the original guys from, getting the credit they deserve and probably getting the revenue stream that they deserve. Like I've always said on this show, having the brand, having the actual name of the group is bigger than who's in it, unfortunately, especially as time goes on. And so the original guys, I think while they're still alive, should certainly have a say, and they should be able to give their blessing or pull the rug out, whatever they choose to do. And it should be up to Burton and Randy. And in this situation, it carries over to LRB, guys like Glenn and whoever else. Graham, who I've spoken to a couple of times, who I think has a real strong vested interest in the Little River Band and is still trying to keep this in the public eye to some degree, to say, hey, we're over here, or better yet, we're down under here in Australia, and we made all this great music, and now nobody knows who we are. And they were kind of a nameless, faceless band. I mean, I mispronounced everybody's names for a few years because I didn't know how to pronounce it. No one ever said Glenn Scharik. No one said that. I was saying Chirac or Shora. I was not doing a good job pronouncing names. I was making fun of Beeb Birtles, right? Because who names their kid Beeb? But Beeb was very important to the Little River Band. And Graham Goebel, I look at as kind of a Paul McCartney figure, arranger, producer, all that stuff, and he's brilliant. And so the brilliant guys should get the credit, and they should get the money. Now, the question is, will LRB do the same thing? I know kind of firsthand that those guys are getting a little tired of dealing with this. They've been fighting this for like 20 years, and they think this is going to come to a natural conclusion, whatever that means. If you've been to a Little River Band or LRB American, we'll call it, concert, you know that other people are starting to sing these songs. It's not just Wayne Nelson. They're now starting to have other people sing. And some of it is just completely different. Like it doesn't sound at all. Not that it sounded exactly like the original, but it was way more plausible, especially like 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, that's when I was kind of on their side. I was like, yeah, they sound really good doing these songs. And the old guys, they messed up because they lost the name. But, based on what's happening here and based on just fairness, as Randy Bachman says, the old guys, the original guys, shouldn't be like kicked to the curb like that. And maybe they thought, okay, they'll do this for a little while, but the concert scene, it's very lucrative. And because, recording music, and this lineup has recorded music, and it hasn't done all that well. They do have another song out there which just came out. Someone sent it to me, and it's a catchy little song. It sounds nothing like, not even close to what LRB did here. Okay. And even into the 80s, early 90s, when they were still on MCA Records, that's when there was some authenticity. Glenn was still singing, and I don't know, folks. I just think Randy Bachman made the point here about fairness. There should be some level of fairness. If you don't have the blessing of the original people who did all of this hard work and established this brand that you are now taking out and cashing in with, you probably have no right to be doing that. And this will be decided in court, I'm sure, if anyone else decides to move forward. But right now, it appears that Burton and Cummings have succeeded in shutting down the current lineup, which calls itself the Guess Who. So there you have it, folks. I've been covering the Little River Band thing. I got so in the middle with that. I had people from Australia hating on me. And now I'm pretty sure I have people who are managing the current group who are really angry with me because, I went to a concert and saw, in full disclosure, they sent me to a concert because I was on their side. And it was a good concert. It wasn't bad. I'm not going to say it was a bad concert, but I began to realize that, hey, I don't know if this is fair. Just, your inner sense of fairness, your conscience starts to talk to you and says, yeah, I don't think you should really be promoting this anymore. And the casual fans, most of them are completely unaware. They just think, hey, this is the group that's always been. I love these songs. I'm going to go listen to it. It's going to be great. And, maybe here's a suggestion for LRB. So Poco, right? Their original guys are pretty much all gone. Tim Schmidt is in the Eagles, but I'm talking about Randy and Paul are both gone. They both passed away the same year. And what happened was the guys who were supporting Poco just went out and they started a new group called Cimarron 615, right? Kind of after Rose of Cimarron. I'm not sure what the 615 is all about, but they started a new group and they play those Poco songs, and they've recorded new material which honors the legacy and the sound of, the prior band. And to me, I think that would be a way to move forward. I don't know if you can sell out large, venues not being LRB or not being the Guess Who, but that might be a way forward. You pick a name like Reminiscing or whatever. You just find a name that would work. The Night Owls would be another good name for a continuation of LRB without using the name. And you go out there and you say, yeah, we're playing the music of the Little River Band. I'm thinking the original guys would probably be okay with that, but who's to know? Who's to know? Unless you're not giving the original people any credit at all, which it seems as though, the band, if you've noticed, doesn't go to Australia. They don't tour in Australia, and they're an Australian band. In fact, I think they had alligators in their logo or something. They allude to that original place where the band came from, but essentially they should have hot dogs and apple pie because they've been American for a long time. All right, people, I've blabbed enough on this one. One more time though for this amazing collection, masterpieces. These are the deeper tracks from the Little River Band, all remastered. Put some headphones on. Go out cruising in the car if you have a CD player, because this is definitely brilliant from start to finish. I'm Dave. Thanks for watching. Please support the channel. Please subscribe, and I will see you soon.